Jeremy Denk, who is our music director, is on a real roll, to put it mildly. In case you didn't know, he was awarded a MacArthur Fellowship grant in September. He was named just this last week as Instrumentalist of the Year by Musical America. This past summer, he was given a book contract by Random House to expand the article he wrote in the New Yorker last spring on his teachers into book form. He is currently artist in residence at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. And all of this while he continues to have a very active performing career as a pianist and as a chamber musician. He's currently in San Francisco performing with the San Francisco Symphony, some Mozart concerto, and travels with them to Carnegie Hall next Wednesday, on top of everything else. And of course, as music director, we've added a new role for Jeremy, something he's never done, and that is he's become a librettist. We all know he's a great writer, but writing a libretto for an opera that he has dreamed up is a completely new thing, and that's one of the beauties of Ojai. We provide a laboratory and a blank slate for artists to reinvent themselves. At one of our first planning meetings, Jeremy said that he had a very, very mad idea for an opera, based on perhaps the most unlikely text that you can imagine, which is Charles Rosen's 1972 scholarly book called The Classical Style. Now, this book is a vivid description of the birth, the characteristics, and the death of the classical style in music. Basically, music that is defined by Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven. And turning this into an opera, I have to say, was not the most obvious idea. But I trusted Jeremy's imagination and creativity and his writing. So I said, absolutely, we'll do it. And we secured Stephen Stuckey, noted American composers, who, by the way, spent, I think, 15 years as head of contemporary music activities with the Los Angeles Philharmonic, so he knows this area, to write the music for this opera. Now, this is a big project. We're not talking The Ring. We're talking about an hour-long chamber opera. It'll feature 8 singers, all singing multiple roles. The roles are Mozart, Haydn, Beethoven, Donna Anna, Don Giovanni, and the Commendatore from Don Giovanni, Charles Rosen himself, a preening musicologist named Henry Snibblesworth, and then the tonic, the dominant, and the subdominant, basic chords of the classical style. There's a role for something called the Tristan chord. There's a bartender, and finally there's a role for Robert Schumann. It's hysterically funny, it's very fast-paced, and really clever. Jeremy has been able to turn this book into a dramatic story. If you know music, you'll be wildly amused. If you don't know music, you'll be wildly amused. He basically has found a way to explain dramatically the essence of harmony and sonata form. Listen to 2 little excerpts from his synopsis. Scene 3, it's in 7 scenes. The dominant is in a bar, feeling unresolved. The tonic appears with an excess of certainty. The bartender comments wryly on this codependent relationship. The subdominant appears, healing all wounds. Mozart happens on the scene, looking for Charles Rosen, but finds himself attracted to the subdominant. Scene 6. We come upon the tonic, the dominant, the subdominant, again, trapped in their ongoing love triangle. A mysterious eye-patched visitor, the Tristan chord, warns them darkly of future developments. Chastened, the tonic, the dominant, and the subdominant decide to enjoy their system of meaning while it lasts. The opera ends as Charles Rosen and Robert Schumann are left on stage sitting at the piano, playing plaintive fragments of his fantasy, quotations of Beethoven with the harmonic polarity blurred, reimagined the disillusion of the classical style, never to return. This opera is a co-commission of the Ojai Music Festival, Cal Performances in Berkeley, where the opera will be given 2 performances in the week following the world premiere here, Carnegie Hall, where it'll be given a performance in Zankel Hall in December 2014, and the Aspen Music Festival, where it'll be performed in July 2015. The project was formally announced about 3 weeks ago and is already capturing enormous press attention, not just in America, but abroad. Charles Rosen, unfortunately, passed away last December, creating some momentary rights issues, which have happily been resolved. Jeremy was a close friend of Charles Rosen, and they spoke frequently about this project as it was being born. And Jeremy reported that the ever avuncular Charles Rosen was bemused but supportive. The idea of dramatic rights for such a book had not been on his radar screen. The classical style, as I said, will be given its world premiere on Friday evening, June 13. As part of the Ojai Talks, our symposia, Ara Gozalimian will lead a panel discussion on the implications, impact, and meaning of the book itself. This is a major, fundamental book on the history and what meaning of music. It will dedicate that session to Rosen's memory. And suffice it to say that we have devised a festival around this sort of basic idea that will reflect Jeremy Denk's very, very unique, creative, and lighthearted but serious view of music. Joining us will be the Chamber Orchestra The Knights from New York City, which is a very unique orchestra, a young group, which calls itself not an orchestra, but an orchestral collective. Conductor Robert Spano, who was music director in 2006, who will conduct the opera, the classical style, and also some music by Morton Feldman. A sensational young violinist named Jennifer Frautschi, jazz composer and pianist Yuri Kane, performing not only with his trio, but a concert of his recomposed music of Gustav Mahler. Sounds completely weird. It is really weird, but this is music. It's a real Mahler, but you're not going to recognize a lot of it. It's written for jazz sextet, Jewish cantor, and disc jockey. We're bringing the path-breaking string quartet Brooklyn Rider,